Welcome to Cinema Convos. This is the show where we bring guests with different tastes in film to have a meaningful discussion about the art of cinema. I'm your host, Yash, and I'm here with my co-host, Zach. And today we are recapping our experiences at the first annual Howdywood Film Festival, which was on March 20th to March 22nd, 2026. And we had a really great time there, and we want to just talk about some of the films that we saw and some of the experiences we had, and just kind of recap the festival, which was put on by MSC Aggie Cinema, which we were both members and leaders of at our time at Texas A&M. It's very exciting to see how the organization's doing and see how they were able to pull off this festival.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking as, both Yash and I, when we were at A&M, we were both leaders of the organization and seeing how they've evolved, how they made this pretty monumental task happen is really inspiring and just kind of really cool just kind of to see how they did it. And it was really cool to see what they had accomplished.
Absolutely. And I mean, at least I can speak for me, Zach. You may be able to echo this too, but whenever we had I guess the idea of having a film festival was something that was kind of briefly mentioned, but never really like followed through on. So I'm really proud of these guys for pulling it off.
I agree with that.
Very cool. So, the festival was Friday to Sunday, and Zach and I attended the whole thing. Friday night was a very exciting night where we got to catch an early screening of the film I Love Boosters with a Q&A followed by Q&A with writer-director Boots Riley, who we also had the pleasure to meet briefly. And it was a really cool movie. I really enjoyed it. I know Zach is a big fan of Sorry to Bother You, so he was very excited about it. And I thought it was a really cool way to kick off the festival. Zach, did you have any thoughts about that film or the question you asked Boots as well?
So just first of all, Boots Riley, like you said, Yash, we got an opportunity to meet him. He's a really awesome guy, really easy to talk to, and it was really cool. For those not familiar, Boots Riley he's a director. He spent many years as a musician, also like a political activist. But 2018 he made Sorry to Bother You, which is honestly one of my favorite movies of the past few years, probably 8 or 10 years. It's I like it. It's very transgressive. It's I like its real elements combined with political and social commentary, and it uses shock value for the purpose of like saying something, and I think that is really neat. And I Love Boosters is a lot of the same things. While Sorry to Bother You was a critique, it was a critique of a lot of things, business culture, capitalism, and oligarchs, and also racism in general, racial prejudice. I Love Boosters really took a lot of the same stuff, but really took a really hard pointed attack on the fashion industry. You
Mhm.
know, high fashion as well as fast fashion, because they both have big impacts on the economy, the environment, etc. So I thought it was really interesting, kind of the commentary. And again, like Sorry to Bother You, he takes surreal techniques to make actual social commentary. I thought it was weird and wacky in the best possible ways. And yeah, I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, echoing what you said, I think the film tackles a lot of social topics in a very unique way, which is very Boots Riley, as we know. I also think it's a very original movie where it feels like you think it's going one way and then it just totally changes the movie completely changes its focus, and it's really doesn't feel as jarring as that would sound. Like it's an unexpected ride. It's very original. And I'm trying to talk a little about spoilers as possible because I want people to experience this movie in theaters May 22nd, because it's the type of movie we should be supporting. We need to support more movies that are original with an original new voice, relatively new. I mean, it's his second feature film and he's also developed a series. I think I'm a Virgo is the name of the series.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, also just as you said, we met Boots Riley. He was very nice to us and he was very inspiring to just meet and see his film. And yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what else I would say about it because I don't want to get too heavy into the plot, but it's a really cool movie. Definitely check it out when you get the chance.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot to talk about without talking about the plot. I mean, we just talked about the social topics we could talk about. So I had asked Boots Riley a question. The question was about the visual side of the film. The visuals in the film were very impressive. Such something you're going to see, and you can know this by looking at the poster of the film. Color is a big part of the film, as you would think about a movie about fashion. Color is a big part of it. There are, not to spoil it, but there are parts of the movie, especially in the fashion parts of it, where they are very monochrome. One color is dominant in some parts of the film, and also different colors as well. So color definitely plays a big part of it. I had asked him questions about the costume design as well as the cinematography, and he answered some wonderful questions. Apparently, the costume designer for this film was the same costume designer who worked on Everything Everywhere All at Once, which also received an Oscar nomination for costume design. So very cool. What I will say is this was talked about a lot at our Q&A, but music was a big part of it. Hoots Riley was a musician for many years. He had a band called Haku, which was like a political rock hip hop group. Um, and in this, and he did some of the music there. And then with this film, And Sorry to Bother You, the music was done by a group called Tune Yards, who I've actually been a fan of for many years. They're very kind of avant-garde, kind of a wacky indie rock, but like in almost kind of like a world music sort of way. They composed the score for this film, and they were able to capture the more surreal elements that Boots Riley was going for, especially in scenes. And you'll know it when you see the film. But there's parts of it that what's going on is so weird and wacky. You need to have a musical score that underscores kind of the absurdity and the silliness. And Tune Yards really delivered there. So I really enjoyed that part of it. There's so much you can say, not just talking about that, but the cast. I thought the cast,
They're great. They work really well
mhm,
together, have really natural on-screen chemistry. Kiki Palmer, I've always been a fan of hers. I think she's
absolutely.
fantastic in the lead. Yeah, it's a really, really good original film, and there's a lot to talk about. We could do a whole episode on I Love Boosters down the line if we wanted to. There's so much to unpack, in terms of its themes and also, I mean, Kiki Palmer, and I also want to highlight Demi Moore's performance, which I thought very entertaining. I feel like seeing her in a less, I guess, like almost like a cartoonish villain. Like it was just kind of new for me. I don't really see her in those kind of roles too often, so I enjoyed her performance a lot as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really, it's not that much of a cliche to have, like you said, a cartoonish villain, especially in a film that is tackling the commentary that it's tackling. So, um, no, I thought Demi Moore did an excellent job. This is her first big role since The Substance. Very neat, very neat. We'll have that. I'm always fascinated by actors who, and you know the rules. You know the ones that they're big comeback renaissance role, and the role that they do next. I can
Yeah,
think of most recent one I can think of Brendan Fraser after The Whale. He did a Rental Family, stuff
yeah,
like that. There's many others I could name, but like stuff like that. So Demi Moore after The Substance, she does I Love Boosters, which is great for her, and I'm very happy that she was in this film.
yeah, for sure. I think it was a great casting choice, and I think regardless of being somewhat over the top and cartoonish, there's an element of it where you're like there actually are people like this though. So it's not even it rides the line of being over the top but also kind of grounded. So I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
One more point about the cast. Uh, Lakeith Stanfield, who is in Sorry to Bother You, is the star of Sorry to Bother You. He is in this film as well, albeit a smaller supporting role. And I'm not going to say anything, but his role is bizarre. Even for Boots Riley standards, his role is very. Some of the parts where I was the most shocked, and you'll know when you see it May 22nd. You'll know the scenes. I'm like, oh my goodness, oh wow, all right.
yeah,
So
there was a sequence that had the audience just absolutely like reacting to it. That's all I really will say for now.
that's
You'll
all we
know it
can say.
like Zach, as Zach said, you'll know it when you see it. You can't miss it.
Yep.
But yeah, overall, really solid first night. That's how they got the ball rolling, which was awesome. And so moving on to the next day, we had the opportunity to watch three feature films and see three guest speakers. Highlighting the films first, the feature films were Shine, directed by Tracy Satterwhite, Marginalia, directed by Mark Beal, and Scarecrow, a DC fan film directed by Nicholas Martinez. We got the opportunity to meet all of these filmmakers too. They were very kind to us and they gave us a lot of words of encouragement. And it was just really cool to have a conversation with people. Particularly, I feel like I had a really long conversation with Mark about and Zach was there too. We had a conversation with Mark where he talked a lot about his inspirations for Marginalia, which was very cool and just I really enjoyed the feature films. I mean, they were all very different. We had a documentary, we had a black and white gothic horror type of movie, and then we had a DC fan film. So just very different types of movies. So I like the diverse array of features that they had.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, they were all very different, like you said. Starting with Shine, this documentary. It was just a man who owns a shoe shine shop in Houston's Third Ward. Um, his clientele is primarily police officers. Um, he's lived a very interesting life. He has been in a lot of people's lives, impacted a lot of people's lives, been parts of conversations, things like that. What I like about the film is, I mean, it's a documentary. It feels very real. Yeah, it feels very real. You really feel like you are thrown into kind of a biography of this guy. So, I thought that was really interesting. Moving on to Marginalia. That movie was really interesting, like a gothic horror that takes place in a monastery revolving around a nun who's taken a vow of silence. It's not something I necessarily would have sought out on my own, but it was very interesting. Took a lot of big swings. It's black and white, echoing silent era film a lot. Almost reminded me of films also gothic horror, like modern gothic horror, like The Witch and almost like stuff like Midsummer, things like that. It had some horror elements to it. It was very interesting that way. Yeah, it's a piece of art that I admired for what it was trying to do. So
Yeah, no, I mean I agree. Like, I mean, Shine, I think it's a really wholesome story about making a large impact with, the minimal resources you might have. How this guy who, with the shoe shining shop, has impacted so many lives. I thought that was very nice little slice of life documentary where people were just talking about him in the documentary and then it would show some of his shop and it was mostly interviews, but it was a cool feature film. And Marginalia, like you said, it took a lot of big swings. And also, I would not say it's something I would necessarily seek out, but I'm glad I got to see it. I think a lot of technical stuff was really impressive considering it's an independent film. There were a lot of cool effects and things like that that I was very impressed by. And as far as the Scarecrow film goes, I want to say that that was the current student feature film, and props to anyone who's a full-time student and also makes a feature film. I think I could not imagine undertaking that on top of my schoolwork. So very inspiring to see young filmmakers making stuff. And as far as the story goes, it is interesting to imagine the origin of a supervillain in this intimate, setting with it's just about the relationship between him and his father and, his trauma. And I thought it was interesting in that way.
absolutely, yeah. And what I will say about it is, yeah, I mean, who can tell that this was made by a fan, kind of by a student, and not to criticize the film in any way because I see what it was going for. It didn't do a lot in the ways of production design, things like that. This is made by someone who just had a story in their mind and wanted to make the film. So that part I admired about it. What I will say, and this got me thinking, a fan film is basically using IP you're not allowed to use. Is that basically it?
I mean, yeah, basically, I've never really watched a lot of fan films, but I know there are some on YouTube that are like pretty popular. But yeah, I think you have to clarify that it's a fan film for it to be like, okay.
Yeah. What I will say is, for IP issues, this is not a film that's going to be screened in a lot of other festivals because this is what makes Howdywood, it's their inaugural year. Other established festivals would not have touched this film because of that issue. I've watched fan films for other things, other IPs that they
Hmm.
actually have to change the name of it. But you know what they're doing. They have to change the name of the thing they're doing because of fear of copyright. But it's clear
Yeah.
what they are doing. So, I mean, for those reasons, I thought it was interesting, and I give the filmmaker props.
Yeah, I mean, a fan film being shown in a festival, like you said, very nature of Howdywood, just including all these films by current and former students. So yeah, very solid day of features. In that same day, we had the opportunity to hear from Brad Graber, who is the founder of Powerhouse Animation Studios, Donald Zerlin, the owner and chief creative officer of Design Works, and then Claire Chan, who is a VFX supervisor for Sony Animation, and she most recently worked on K-pop Demon Hunters. And we also got the opportunity to see a short film she made called Have I Swallowed Your Dreams? And if I'm being honest, that might have been my favorite film I saw all weekend. It was very heartfelt short about the immigrant experience, and I was really touched by it.
I would agree with that. I think yeah, that was definitely. I mean, of all the films that we saw, I think outside of I Love Boosters, that was really the most professional. I mean, obviously, it was made by a literal film professional. The others that we saw typically aren't. But this one was very interesting. Yeah, chronicled the immigrant experience and also the part of it that I mean, I personally can't relate to it. Maybe you can, Yash, but kind of the guilt. If there's any guilt to live up to your parents' expectations for the sacrifice they made for you to like come to this country, it touched on that a lot, and I thought that was very interesting. And the animation felt, I mean, it was cartoony. It was obviously a cartoon, but it was very realistic looking. And I very much liked that.
Yeah, you could just feel that it was a personal story, and it was very touching, 5 or 6 minutes, however long it was. And then we got to hear her speak right after. So yeah, it was cool to see one more short that was, is by a former student, but it was cool to see her short film before she spoke with us about her, what she does now, and it was really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. What I will say, just we'll get to the other speakers, but uh, Clara Chan specifically. So she served as the visual effects supervisor for K-pop Demon Hunters. Um, Before that, she has spent 25 years working with Sony Pictures Animation. Worked on such films as what she say. She worked on Over the Moon. She worked on she worked on the Emoji Movie. Um, she worked on a few others, but she was more mainly she was working with lighting. That was a part of animation, which I will say two of the three speakers were animation focused, and I will say there is a reason for that, and that also goes into a little bit of what the existing arts culture looks like at A&M. The only Bachelor of Fine Arts or Masters of Fine Arts that we offer at A&M is in the Department of Visualization, which is essentially animation and the art and the tech behind that. We have a state-of-the-art visualization lab in the College of Architecture, and that is the program that Clara Chan had gone through. There are many others have been through it. Many of the animators at Pixar went through it. If you're an ag, you may know Sully from Monsters Inc. It's named after Sully, one of the former presidents of Texas A&M. He's a big presence on our campus, and that's the reason that they named the monster Sully. But the reason that animation was such a focus on this is a lot of the existing arts activity at A&M, a lot of it involves revolves around that program. That's a big reason they were able to get Aggie Cinema was able to get this festival off the ground, kind of leaning on them, leaning on that department, leaning on this. They now have a department of performing arts, which I feel like is new. I don't think they offer really many degrees, but they do have a department of fine arts and performing arts, and they also help facilitate this festival. So that's the reason they were very animation focused because the visualization department played a major part in helping them facilitate this. Now, the reason I bring that up is also because said Clara Chan did the lighting on these films. I think it's so cool that there's a very specific part of animated films, and every there's about 20 of them. They're like, oh, that's your whole job. You just do one little thing. It's not like you're I mean, yeah, you can be editor on animated film, but there's so much more you need to do. You can do sound, you can do just a little sound effects, or you can do the lighting, or you can do the things like that. It's very cool. It's very complex, and it was cool learning about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Animated films are a whole beast of an undertaking from what I understand. And while my current pursuits are not in making animated films, you never know where you'll end up one day. And maybe I'll have the opportunity to, write an animated film or something like that. So it was just cool to see filmmakers from different spaces. I feel like Brad Graber and Clara Chan gave us both a little bit of little different types of speeches and presentations, teaching us a lot about the industry. And then Don Zerlin taught us about film marketing and how he's worked on a bunch of different posters. Um, well, he showed us a lot of the posters that he had worked on during his presentation. They were being shown to us. So very cool to see these speakers, and I'm glad they were able to get them. And like you said, visualization department did a lot to help us out here.
Gosh, I wanted to ask you, as
Mhm.
someone who has an interest in film and a background in marketing, what did you think of Donald Sterling? What did you think of his presentation? What did you think of learning about what he did and how may that have inspired you?
Yeah, no, it's very cool. I mean, I think a film marketing job would be the best of both worlds for me if I had that kind of role. I was curious to see what side of it was going to be, and it was more poster heavy. I'm curious about what kind of work they've done with like trailers or like watching trailers and getting inspiration from them, but seeing the amount of work that goes into each poster was really cool. I think when I try to design posters for my own films, I just get on Canva and kind of mess around, but these guys really think about how they're going to sell the movie, and I thought that was cool and interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. One thing I got out of his presentation, yes, also talking about the actual designing of posters going into Photoshop and Illustrator and other things like that. And, it's also, designed by a committee as well. Who do you want to show? What do you want to show? What's the big takeaway? Also, you talked about the business of film a little bit, and you talked about film markets, which I thought was very cool, which for those who don't know is at many film festivals they have what is basically they have a side of it that is shopping films around to studios and investors that that is kind of getting them in on the ground floor. Whenever you're whenever a film goes to the big festivals, Cannes or Venice or Sundance, and they come back and they're now associated with A24 or Neon or Searchlight. That's because they were successfully bid on at a film market. And a lot of those festivals, and not even at festival, but just in general, there are film markets. And Mr. Serlin, he touched on that a little bit and what his role does and the things that he made. Because a lot of those posters, for some of the films he did, some of those films weren't even made yet. They were sequels. He made posters in anticipation of a film. And so you can make things, so you can make a poster a million different ways based on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get money, crowdfunding for a film, you make a poster for that. You're trying to sell a film that's already made, get a distributor, you make a poster for that. So I thought it was very interesting hearing his point of view.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you are making films and short films and independent films, you think about the creative side of it, but it was interesting to get like the business perspective as well. Because at the end of the day, it is a business and it makes a lot of money, and that's the driving force for a lot of people, a lot of studio execs especially. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, Saturday was a very full day. It was all day, three features and three speakers, and I really enjoyed that day. I don't have a lot more to add there, but if you can check out any of these feature films, some of them are online, so definitely check them out if you get a chance. And then moving on, we had the last day, which is all of the short films on Sunday. We did have the honor of including two films that Zach and I worked on, Noise Cancellation and At Your Age. which is very cool to see our films being showcased among many other short films. And for this section, I was just going to highlight all of the films and also point out, which films walked out a winner. I'm not going to get into first, second, and third. I'm just going to say the name of the film. I'm going to say the names of all the films that won an award, and I'm going to say the names of the rest of the films, and then we can dive into individual ones as we feel. Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then
So
just for so what I will say is like we saw a lot of different films, short films. I think we saw 15 in all made by current or former Texas A&M students. So I thought that was very neat.
yeah, it was. There were, I think, five former students, and there were more current students. So their category had a lot more films, which was very cool. I never made a film while I was a student, so props to them. Okay, so I'm just gonna go down the line. I am gonna include every film that I listed here. At Your Age, winner. Noise Cancellation. 415 in Progress, winner. A Sailboat Who Wishes He Was a Pirate. Absence. Atlas Crushed. Cans, winner. Rum Kicks, winner. Superiority, winner. The Bremen Animal Troupe. The Chase is About to Begin, winner. The Experiment, Vigilante, What the Future Holds, What Weeping Cannot Symbolize. And I know I pointed out a few films as winners, but I want to say anyone who gets to show their film at a festival is a winner to me.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, so outside of obviously you're going to be biased on a couple of those, but
Yes.
outside of the two that you made, what was your favorite and why?
Ooh, my favorites. Okay, so let's see. I liked a few of these quite a bit. I will say one that stood out to me is 415 in Progress. It was I think it was from the body cam perspective of a cop, and it had a very much horror movie type of feel. They're going into this house where creepy stuff's happening. A very found footage horror feel. It's a genre that I personally really like when it's done right, and I could see some of the inspirations they had there. But I wouldn't say I had one favorite. 415 in Progress was a good one. I thought Cans was very good. Yeah, I guess I could mention some of the filmmaker names too. So 415 in Progress is directed by Tyler Webster. Cans, which is a father and son aluminum can having a conversation, directed by Austin Baltes. And then another one that I thought was a personal favorite was Rum Kicks, which is a current student directed by Blake Woodard. I would say those three were my personal favorites. They resonated the most with me. What were some of your favorites, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of what you said, some of my favorites. I thought Cans was honestly probably one of my personal favorites. And what I liked about that one, so director of that one, Austin, he's also a former member of Aggie Cinema as well. He also led the organization quite a bit after us, but he was there. We got to talk to him and hang out with him. And I got to ask him a little bit about him making that film. It was rather short, probably a couple minutes, and it was aluminum cans. Two aluminum cans, father and a son, putting googly eyes on them. I don't even think it was stop motion. It was like puppetry, basically. But it has a very surprisingly heartfelt message that I wasn't expecting. Um, it was very cool, and that was one of the most emotionally hard-hitting films of it. And it was two freaking aluminum cans.
And
That
it
if
was
you can do
also,
something big with something small, good for you.
yeah, it's two aluminum cans and it's 3 minutes long, and by the end of it, you really feel something. So props, I'm a firm believer that you can make an impact in a couple minutes if you really put a lot of thought into it. So,
Yeah,
um,
agree
but
with
yeah,
that.
I think Absence was similar in that way. It was stop motion animation directed by Shalina Sabi. Stop motion with like clay, I think, something like that. But it
Yeah,
also had
something
a
like that.
very like a heavy took a heavy turn near the end. So I was very impressed by that one as well. I was impressed by all of these. I think just seeing people make stuff is inspiring to me as a filmmaker. So it makes me want to go to more festivals and it makes me want to collaborate with more people, get more voices out there. It's all very inspiring at the end of the day. And whether a short film resonates with you or not, that's subjective, but the the act of seeing people share stuff they make with others is always very meaningful to me. So I really enjoyed this. I'm glad they saved the shorts for last because that was a very fun way to wrap up the festival.
Absolutely, I would definitely agree with that. Other ones that I enjoy, like you said, Rum Kicks that was probably one of the most. I would say there was a lot of time and a lot of skill put into this. I had an opportunity to speak to with the filmmaker, Blake, about this too. He's from an organization that at A&M that is actually focused on making films, and I had contact with them throughout college, so it's no surprise it looks the way it does because it's from a little sub community within our university that is just filmmakers making stuff, and I thought it was very cool. It took some swings. It was sometimes I felt like it was artsy for the sake of being artsy, which isn't bad, but it had a lot of that kind of fun, kind of quirky stuff to it. But it stuck the landing, and I thought it was very good.
Yeah, for sure. It was very experimental in a lot of ways, but I really liked it. It was one of my favorites from the festival. So Zach, is there anything else you would like to highlight about the festival?
Anything else I'd like to highlight about the festival? I thought it was a very cool opportunity. I do want to highlight a couple more shorts. One short called "The Chase is About to Begin"
Mm.
by Breck and Halagansi.
Yeah, that's definitely one you want to talk about because I think the one thing I noticed most about that film is the editing, and I know you as an editor must have thought something unique was going on with the way they edited and put that film together.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There was a lot of, I mean, it's very, and this is not to be derogatory, very flashy, very fast-paced editing, which that's what it's trying to go for. The whole thing is someone who I forget the what the experiment was, but he is hyped up on caffeine, something like that. He is turned all the way up, and so is the audience. So what I will say is, it very it shared a lot of DNA with those YouTube videos, those YTPs on YouTube that are just the
Yes,
editing, just spamming you with crappy edits, just
it
like
very
all
much
those. It
remind the
had
same
energy
style.
of
Yeah.
They had the energy of that, but on purpose,
Hmm.
because in the purpose of to stress you out and disorient you. And so I thought
Absolutely.
that was very cool. There was a one really part of it that I thought was genuinely impressive, where they had
Hmm.
something I forget, and you might remember this, Yash, where there was like a they referenced the medication in it or something, and they kind of had a fake ad for like a medication spliced in, and I think they
Right.
might have made that for the film. That was
Yeah.
very cool. So that was kind
Yeah.
of neat. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, points to you. That's
Hmm. And
production value.
I think conceptually it's there's definitely some inspirations from the Jason Statham film Crank. Because in that film he has to keep his heart at above a certain pace or he dies. So I could see some of the parallels there, which was cool. I like that movie a lot. But yeah, no, that was also a really cool one. There was a lot of obviously everybody involved has limitations on what they can make, but seeing the amount of storytelling, the themes, the amount of thought that went into all of these films, I was very impressed by, inspired by. Frankly, it made me wish I started this whole thing even sooner than I did, just because, you know, I see the next generation doing things like this, and it inspires me a lot.
I definitely agree with that. And this is a good time to remind you or anybody that, if you start doing film as early as you can, that's awesome. If you start later than you think you probably could have, that's okay too. There is no one right path in life. Just because you
Absolutely.
see others, especially college, you're like, man, I wish I had done that. Well, good news is you still have time. And if you're
There's
doing
always
it
time.
now, there's others who aren't doing it. So you and me are doing it. And to anyone else who isn't doing it and who wants to, I don't care if you're 28 or 88, you still have time and you can do it. So
Yeah, there's so many ways you can express yourself through art, and film is one of the ways that I love to do it. And Zach collaborating with Zach has been really cool. So yeah, I mean, overall, great festival. It was our first time going to a festival as filmmakers, which was a new experience for me. I had not been to a festival in general in like 8 years, and being able to go with films and also show some of the films you got to work on and share them with other filmmakers was really, really rewarding.
Hmm. Yeah. Speaking of which, I did want to, I would be remiss if at the end I didn't ask you, as someone who directed two films that got shown, what did it feel like? I know for at your age specifically, this was the first time showing it in front of a not in front of an audience, but in a theater, in front of a public audience. What did it feel like having that film shown, and like what was going through your head, and what did you feel afterward?
Yeah, so I mean, it is the first time we're showing it in a public space to non-cast and crew. So it was technically the first official screening of it, not online. I'm really proud of that film. I think it came out really, really good. I've heard a lot of nice things about it since we released it, and it was cool to see people laugh at it, at the parts that were funny, and like just enjoy the film. And and I think college kids might not be necessarily experiencing these things as heavily as they will in the coming years in their mid 20s, especially Indian American people. But I hope it at least reminds them that it's going to be okay. Because right now their problems are different, but it's gonna happen to all of us. So we need to I make films for my younger self. That's what I always say, and I think it was just nice to be able to share it and also win an award for it, which was very icing on the cake.
Yeah, no, that was really cool because you and I mean, I guess I was also a part of it, but it's your vision. You won an award for filmmaking. Is that the first ever filmmaking award you won?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't shown my film in any festivals like this. I haven't won any awards like this, so it was a lot of firsts, which was just really cool.
So that's a win by itself. That's really cool.
Yes. It's the first time a film that I directed or wrote won an award. I can say that.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a little more fuel to the fire, as Timothy Chalamet would say.
Want to be one of the greats, huh?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a topic for a different time.
Opera. What do you think about opera and ballet?
I don't consume enough of it to speak on it.
That that is an appropriate answer. Let's not try and get in any more trouble.
Yeah, we don't cinema convos is on the headlines tomorrow. That wouldn't be great. Or
Yeah.
would it be great?
Listen, I think we're at the stage for us where any publicity is good publicity. So
True. All right, so we have reached the end of today's discussion, recapping our time at the 2026 Howdywood Film Festival. I want to thank all of you for joining us. And if you enjoy our show, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or leave us a review or rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can stay up to date with new episodes by giving us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And you can support our show by checking out our available merch, which is linked to our social media. Additionally, today, if you would like to support MSC Aggie Cinema, we're going to include a link below in the description on how you can donate and help the organization continue to make Howdywood an annual tradition. Suggested donations are $25 movie fan, $50 actor, and $100 director. And again, we'll include that link in the description so you can support our former organization and hopefully keep this festival going annually. And with that, we hope you tune in next time.